The idealist aims squarely at his star, happily journeys toward it, content with progress. The perfectionist insists upon arriving, and, never fully arriving, is never happy.
We all know idealists and perfectionists in our lives, and perhaps you identify yourself with one of these labels. I'm making this video to explain what exactly idealism and perfectionism are, and I want to explore the differences between these two mindsets, and then finally make a clear case as to why perfectionism should be avoided and why idealism should be sought after. First of all, people often confuse these two definitions with each other because they share a lot of obvious similarities. To make this clear, I am going to put up on screen the definitions provided by dictionary.com for idealism and perfectionism. Idealism is defined as the cherishing or pursuit of high or noble principles, purposes, goals, etc. And perfectionism is defined as a personal standard, attitude, or philosophy that demands perfection and rejects anything less. Now, as you can see, there is a lot of overlap between these two definitions. Perfectionism is understood to be a personal standard, attitude, or philosophy. Idealism can also be understood this way because both words refer to the way one conducts themselves in their life. For example, you might happily say, "Oh, he's such an idealist," about your boss, after you notice how he is always orienting himself towards a higher set of goals or principles, and that's the way that he runs his business. And then, about the same person, you might say, "Oh, he's such a perfectionist," after he reprimands you for not meticulously following all of the rules that he sets out in the employee guidelines. So this brings us to the next similarity. Both idealism and perfectionism have a set of high or noble principles or goals. Whether you are engaging in idealism or perfectionism, there is an ideal or perfect vision you are striving towards. Now that we have explored the obvious similarities that perfectionism and idealism share, let's dive into the more subtle differences that separate them. And I will do this by sharing my own personal definitions that I use for idealism and perfectionism. Now, personally, I define idealism as a mindset that cherishes the pursuit of principles, purposes, or goals for the sake of their high and noble nature, which embraces failure. And then I define perfectionism as a mindset that demands the attainment of purposes or goals for the sake of perfection, which rejects failure. Where an idealist cherishes the pursuit of his goals, a perfectionist demands the attainment of his. Where an idealist strives to embody his principles because he knows them to be high and noble, a perfectionist has only one principle, and that is perfection. Where an idealist embraces failure as a natural part of being human, a perfectionist rejects failure because he denies his own inherent imperfection. Once these two individuals embark on the journey of life, two very different results can be seen. The idealist can be seen failing again and again to fully embody his principles, fulfill his purposes, and achieve his goals. But he never allows this to halt his efforts because he celebrates the pursuit, knowing that he's never going to reach perfection. He takes full responsibility for his life. The idealist uses the pain of his defeats as fuel once more to step out onto the battlefield, relishing in the noble nature of this endeavor. Over the course of his life, the idealist will achieve great things despite his numerous failures, shortcomings, and weaknesses. The idealist keeps his eye on the horizon and always is conscious of the bigger picture that his actions are a part of. The perfectionist, on the other hand, does not seem to have the same limitless tolerance for failure as his idealist counterpart. Each defeat is a blow to the perfectionist's already fragile ego. Each time he stumbles in his effort to attain perfection, he grows resentful and insecure. Rather than take ownership over his life, he points the finger at those around him, at the unique circumstances of his environment. The perfectionist eventually becomes exhausted from his failure to fulfill the impossibly high standards he created for himself. But, rather than admit to his faults, he doubles down. He digs in his heels and intensifies his perfectionism, focusing on smaller and smaller details that are within his control, so that he can continue to feed his now severely battered sense of self. Over the course of his life, the perfectionist will be lucky to achieve anything beyond trivial, superficial accomplishments, precisely because of his unhealthy obsession with perfection. So, by now it should be pretty clear to you which of these two mindsets is more conducive to success when it comes to self-development and self-improvement. You're going to fail again and again and again. And you can either use that as intrinsic motivation to keep going, or you can choose to reject it and, like the perfectionist, try to retreat into some fantasy in your mind where failure doesn't exist and it is possible to be perfect. You can either be a perfectionist or an idealist. The choice is yours.